The Milwaukee Brewers have made a major trade, parting ways with Nestor Cortes, and this trade is a very interesting one when it does come down to it. We're going to be breaking down this trade, going over the return in this trade, as well as what this means going forward for this Milwaukee Brewers team. Ladies and gentlemen, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We've been covering this trade deadline the last few weeks, and now we're going into the season with a remainder of the season going towards the postseason, and we have a lot of stuff to cover. We're going to have it all here for you guys, so be sure to hit the sub button for all of your Milwaukee Brewers news. But we need to jump straight into this deal that Mark Feinsand reported earlier today, or not even earlier today, about 20 minutes ago. The Padres are acquiring Nestor Cortes from the Brewers. Now, this is all we got. We have the return here that we're going to discuss here in a moment, but this is one of the players that we discussed that was going to likely be traded for this Brewers team. Apart from the obvious, searches we were looking for, Eugenio Suarez being one, looking for a power bat. The Brewers are pretty inactive, and we're going to jump into here in a minute why, but this is one of the deals that they made today, and really going over, what we really knew and expected was going to happen, and honestly caught a lot of Brewers fans by surprise. But I want to go out and pull up the rotation before we do jump into all of this, and as we do look at it, this is a pretty good explanation as to why this trade went down, and why Nestor Cortes was kind of the victim here, I guess you could say, of any of the pitchers that could have been traded for this team. And when we look at Freddy Peralta, Quinn Priester, Jose Quintana, Jacob Mizrowski, Brandon Woodruff, and of Robert Gasser, who's on the 6-day IL currently, as is Nestor Cortes. With Nestor Cortes going and rehabbing his injury and nearly being back, his value is getting a little bit higher than what it was, and with his 1 year left on his deal, there were a lot of reports coming up that he would not be returning to this team, and a lot of people really expected him to be the one that was going to be traded, and him and, some other names, Jose Quintana was one as well, but now with Nestor Cortes having the market he had, reports were coming in that we made a video on the other day as well, going back to the Yankees. The deal was done, and it makes sense for the Brewers in this case to kind of free up some of their rotation that they would really get anything back on. The value wasn't super high, but it was certainly a very interesting player in return. Now, getting to that player, Brandon Lockridge goes back to the Brewers from the Padres in this Cortes deal, and we're going to jump into him a bit as well, because he is a very interesting candidate who was traded, and, not really anybody that was groundbreaking, and I think that's one thing that we really were hoping for, is that Eugenio Suarez, someone bring the power bat, but we know that the Brewers trusted their system, trusted what they had going to make sure that they would get to the postseason. They didn't want to change up too much, and that was coming straight from Matt Arnold, which we're going to kind of jump into here in a moment as well. But Brandon Lockridge is not really known to be a guy that is, going to be around the MLB too much. He's only been here a few times with the Padres last season, 2024, played 12 games and 47 this year, so took the jump, but a .216 average is really not what this Brewers team was looking for. Neither is the .519 OPS. So you're probably wondering what is the positive on this, and you even see in his last tenure with the Brewers in 2024 in those 12 games wasn't great either, but going and taking a look at what he did in AAA, AA, down in the minors, he's been a very solid player, and if that can translate to an MLB, tenure, that could be a very, very good return for Nestor Cortes, who was likely going to be walking at the end of the season anyways. But one interesting thing from Baseball Savant that we need to touch on here is the fact that he has a 99 percentile running speed, and sprint speed, excuse me, and this is one thing that, is very underrated about his game. More so kind of what he's known for, and you go back as well to look at the stats that we're going to jump into. He is quite a fast guy, and also the stolen bases you see there going down. Hasn't gotten caught stealing very often, and when you're going to a postseason, you're looking for some of these guys. These are the types of players that every team wants and needs to have. Someone that you go throw on the bases, put him in a pinch running situation, goes to extra innings, have him as the ghost runner. Things there are exactly where things needed to, and for what Nestor Cortes brings to his game, what he brought to the Brewers, this is actually just a fantastic return. And, you could have used Nestor Cortes in a part of a different deal. Yes, that would have worked fine, but when the Brewers were looking at it, and when we see what Matt Arnold was going with, and we're going to pull up that quote here, he says, if Milwaukee feels confident in their depth and believes that they can upgrade elsewhere, particularly in the bullpen or outfield, packaging Cortes in a deal isn't out of the question. do apologize. This is what the whole idea going back to what a Cortes deal was going to look like afterwards, and kind of once again going back to that trade market and going back to him being an option for a lot of teams with the potential of him walking. And says, after all, his current rehab outing may not only be a returning to the mound for Milwaukee, they might also be doubling as a showcase for contenders needing a playoff-tested lefty. And the Padres, after the deals they've made today, that is exactly what they were looking for. That's exactly what they got in Nestor Cortes. Is someone who, if healthy, will be a very good talent. And with what, as I mentioned, with what the bullpen is right now, or the rotation is, right now for the Brewers, we really had no need for Nestor Cortes, and honestly, getting what the return you got, you really can't complain with that. But I do have one more quote, and this one is the actual one coming here out with Matt Arnold and kind of what he had to say previously. Nestor Cortes has been working his way back from an elbow strain, but the Milwaukee Brewers have plenty of starting pitching, and that makes the left-handed a logical trade candidate, and the Yankees are one of them that needed rotation help. And John Heyman once earlier mentioned as well what could have been, and it did seem like Matt Arnold was really keeping an eye on Nestor Cortes as this trade opportunity to ship out, more so than a guy like Logan Henderson, who we've spoken about before, and even though it would have been a much-needed trade for Logan Henderson to be able to go get an Eugenio Suarez, for an addition like this, Nestor Cortes was the guy. And I think that this deal ultimately came out to be a big win for this Milwaukee Brewers team. Obviously, could have been a much bigger one, knowing what you could have packaged them with, but with the way the market was playing out, the way this Brewers team is built, and the way that Matt Arnold is talking about how his confidence in this team is exactly where it is, without making any additions or any subtractions, I think that this is probably the best outcome that could have been without having a major change. So let me know what you think in the comments below here as well. And we're going to have a lot more videos coming out over these next few days going over what the Milwaukee Brewers trade deadline potentially could have been with these reports. And we're going to see a lot of stuff coming out from not just the Brewers, but Matt Arnold as well, and also many other reports. So let me know what you think about this trade here in the comments below. And that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.